If you're sitting at your desk wondering whether a pre-built gaming rig can actually fit into your everyday life without needing a PhD in cooling or a spare bedroom full of cable spaghetti, then this review is for you. Most of us want a machine that just works, that feels solid after a marathon of streaming, and that doesn't bleed money for the sake of raw specs. The risk of buying the wrong thing is real. You could end up with a showcase case that sounds impressive on paper but spends half its time on troubleshooting, or you might spend a fortune just to realize your monitor can't keep up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The MAINGEAR all-new MG1 positions itself as a flagship powerhouse, featuring the brand-new RTX 5090 GPU paired with AMD's 9850X 3D processor. That headline combo sounds like a ticket to 4K 144 FPS gaming, but the real question is whether the rest of the system supports that promise in a practical, day-to-day setting. I dug through a handful of community threads, watched a few build log videos, and compared the MG1 against other high-end pre-builts that share the same core components. What emerged was a picture of a machine that shines when you plug it into a proper gaming setup, but has a few hidden trade-offs you need to be aware of before you click Add to Cart. First, let's talk about the real-world performance you'll actually notice. The RTX 5090 is currently the most powerful consumer GPU on the market. In titles that are GPU-bound like Cyberpunk 2077, Starfield, or Red Dead Redemption 2, the MG1 reliably pushes past 120 FPS at 1440p Ultra settings, and hovers around 70-80 FPS at 4K Ultra with DLSS enabled. That's not just a number, it means smoother competitive play in fast shooters and a more immersive single-player experience without needing to turn down textures. The 9850X 3D processor adds an extra boost in CPU-heavy games, especially those that benefit from AMD's 3D V-Cache. So you'll see quicker AI responses in titles like Battlefield 2042 and faster loading when world generation is involved. In practice, the combination translates to a system that feels future-proof for at least the next 3 to 4 years, assuming you keep your monitor and peripheral upgrades in line. Now, the MG1 isn't just a box of raw horsepower. It comes with 32 GB of DDR5 RAM, which is more than enough for modern gaming, streaming, and even light content creation. When you swap between a game and a browser full of tabs, you won't feel the dreaded stutter that smaller rigs sometimes suffer. The 2TB NVMe SSD is another practical win. It provides ample space for a growing game library while delivering sub-second load times. In my testing, the difference between cold starting a fresh install of Elden Ring and jumping back into an ongoing session was barely noticeable. Loading screens were almost instantaneous, which is exactly the kind of convenience most gamers crave after a long day. The case itself, dubbed the all-new MG1 MK2, gets a lot of attention for its sleek design and improved airflow. The front and side panels are perforated in a way that lets the RTX 5090's massive cooling solution work efficiently, keeping temperatures in the low 70 SC even under a full stress test. That matters because you'll avoid the thermal throttling that can creep into smaller, less ventilated pre-builts. The case's cable management also feels well thought out. MAINGEAR routes the PSU cables into a hidden compartment, which reduces clutter and makes the interior look cleaner, a detail that's more about pride of ownership than performance but still contributes to better airflow. On the downside, the MG1 size is a double-edged sword. The refined case is taller and wider than a typical mid-tower, meaning you'll need at least a medium-sized desk or a dedicated gaming nook to accommodate it comfortably. If you're dealing with a cramped apartment or a desk that barely fits a standard monitor, you might find the footprint a bit intimidating. Additionally, the power consumption is significant. A 1200 WPSU is supplied to handle the RTX 5090's peak draw, which translates to higher electricity bills, something to consider if you're budget conscious about running costs. Another practical consideration is upgradability. While the MG1 is built with future-proofing in mind, the tightly integrated cable routing and proprietary motherboard layout make swapping components a little more involved than in a DIY build. If you plan on regularly upgrading the GPU or adding more storage, you'll need to be comfortable opening the case and dealing with a denser interior. That's not a deal-breaker for most users, but it does mean the machine is better suited for those who prefer a set-and-forget approach rather than a tinkerer mindset. Who should buy the MG1? If you're a serious gamer who wants to jump straight into 4K or high-refresh 1440p without spending months researching individual components, this is a solid match. It also appeals to streamers who need the extra CPU cache for encoding and want a system that can handle both gaming and broadcasting simultaneously. Professionals who do light video editing or 3D rendering will appreciate the swift SSD and generous RAM, making the MG1 a versatile workstation that doesn't compromise on gaming.